Still on the mechanism of reflexive de-afferentation techniques or rapid de-afferentation techniques, RDTs, we include elements of both soft tissue and articular release. In particular, soft tissue releases, which are included in RDT work mechanistically, we have the element of both a vascular and lymphatic clearance. In terms of this vascular lymphatic clearance, we're aiming at a clearance of congestion and edema, and a clearance from the local site of the inflammatory and pain mediators. So this plays a role in how we set up techniques so that local tissues and synergistic tissue patterns and groups of tissues or synergisms of muscle groups are actually able to get better blood supply and better lymphatic drainage, as well as clear out toxins. And this is a very huge part of what we do, keeping in mind that once we clear these toxins, once you clear the cellular debris, once you clear inflammatory mediators, cytokines, and pain mediators from the local areas that you're trying to treat, you eliminate pain. Okay? You improve vascular supply, you drain lymph. Very often you take care of pain, and very often, very rapidly, you get the results you choose. Okay? As far as talking about synergistic patterns goes, for the upper extremity, there is an accepted pattern of synergistic release that we actually like to use. By example, for the upper extremities, we have a very, very common sequence which is also sympathetic in nature, as far as it being a reactionary mechanism. You could have something that starts with a poor behavioral compensation to either an internal or internal stressor, and that can translate into secondary muscle spasticity that over time gets held in spasticity and hypertonus, gives you tissue congestion and a poor local blood tissue supply and lymphatic clearance, and over time this acute somatic dysfunction turns into chronic somatic dysfunction and reinforces itself by compromising adjacent areas all along that kinematic synergistic field. Very often a pattern we see will include one in which we have a protracted shoulder, and on top of this protracted shoulder we secondarily have an adducted and internally rotated shoulder. So it's first protracted and adducted and then held in internal rotation. Okay? On top of this we have elbow flexion and we have forearm pronation, as well as wrist flexion and ulnar deviation. On top of that, we have finger flexion and thumb adduction. Okay? And the correction sequence for this particular synergistic pattern that tends to work really well in practice would include, aside from the Lasher protocols, by experience we've also had very good success with a correction sequence that includes, in this order, a correction relaxation for the supraspinatus, an adjustment to neutral of an elevated first rib, a release of the pectoralis minor, a release of the biceps, and a release for the wrist flexors. Now, the releases for the supraspinatus and the pectoralis minor, as well as the biceps and the wrist flexors, can in fact be done rather effectively with either a reflexive technique or a direct technique. As far as direct techniques go, it's just focal pressure, focal inhibitory pressure, focal inhibitory progressive pressure on whatever tissue you have involved. And that's one way to get at it. Another way that works very well is a lateral stretch. Okay, it's actually just a stretch against the border of a muscle. You look for the muscle border. You look for the supraspinatus border. You look for the pectoralis minor border. You look for the biceps border. You look for the border, the body border for the wrist flexors. Okay, and you drag fascia towards you, and then you hold against the lateral border, so you're perpendicular to the direction of the longitudinal fibers of the muscle, and it's a stretch towards the other side. Okay, it can be a medializing stretch or a lateralizing stretch. Doesn't matter much. The choice between the two is largely dictated by your positioning and patient's comfort. If it hurts to do a medializing stretch, do a lateralizing stretch. The point is only that you're perpendicular to muscle tissue, and then you're going at tissue speed, as slow as you can, as slow as it takes the tissue to move to the next level. And it doesn't have to be a supreme effort on your part. Rather than it being a strong force, you're going as far and as fast only as the muscle allows a give. And then you wait for the next give, and then you go deeper, and then you wait for the next give, and then you go deeper, and then you wait for the next give, and you go deeper. All the time trying to give a lateralizing stretch. A lateralizing stretch, again, is relaxation to the muscle. Okay? And if you can't do it locally against the muscle, as close to the tendinous insertion or origin, you can go near the belly. It all kind of depends on where it hurts the least and where the least amount of effort on your part will deliver the largest results. So, elements could include largest contact area. If you can increase your contact area of lateral stretch against the muscle, that increases your chance of properly stretching the entire muscle group. Next, rather than challenge against the muscle belly, challenge as near as you can to the musculotendinous junction, and that allows you challenge against a very small area rather than a large area that you're fighting against with for when you challenge the muscle belly itself. And that conserves your effort and makes your attempt to laterally distend the muscle more effective, and that gives you a more effective stretch. Now, if you can't work on that local area, you can work anywhere along the line of the muscle, actually, where it hurts the least, and you can deliver very, very good results that way, because as long as you stay away from pain, chances are, with a perpendicular stretch, you are able to relax a muscle. Okay? The reverse is true. If you stimulate pain, you stimulate a contraction. So stay as far away from pain as you can, and chances are you'll get the results you want. So again, the sequence was relax the supraspinatus, relax, and neutralize an elevated first rib towards neutral, relax the pectoralis minor insertion, relax the biceps brachii, and then relax the wrist flexors, and that will tend to reverse the synergistic pattern for the upper extremity, which includes the protraction of the shoulder, adduction and internal rotation for that shoulder, elbow flexion, forearm pronation, wrist flexion with ulnar deviation, finger flexion, and thumb adduction. Okay? So, that takes care of the synergistic pattern release for the upper extremities. We go